station.
That's right. We have our guests in studio already with us, Joshua Kipto, Nandi County Assembly Speaker, as well as Irungu Houghton, Amnesty International Kenya Executive Director. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Joshua, I'll start with you. What is your assessment of the current voting process up until now? It's been 6 hours down the line.
Okay, I think it's average. You'll give a performance of average because the main challenge remains the slow process seen across most of the sessions. In every of your news shot, I've seen people being interviewed. Everyone is complaining that we came early and it started late. Number two, you even find complaint that it takes up to 10 minutes for around 1, 2, 3 people can take up to 10 minutes. So that's a bit slow. Knowing that as at now, we only have 5 hours to close of the polling station, and yet 3/4 of the voters are yet to vote. Number two, which is glaring, is the failure of the KIMS kit. That is a serious concern. I think it now gives IEBC a chance to, and I keep saying they must have a quick turnaround option of, for example, if the KIMS kit fail, then automatically the CRO, who is the county returning officer, must give the constituency returning officers the right to be able to allow the POs and the DPOs for the use of the manual register. That was a consideration. And I think the CEO, Hussein Marjan, had mentioned it. He had spoken about that we'll just have a printout. So I would expect that to happen simultaneously, because you can imagine, I saw the case of Matungu and I've seen Mombasa. When you have a significant number of people not voting in the morning, then they go, it will be difficult for the same voters to come back. Importantly, which is more glaring, which I think it will be an indictment on the part of the IEBC, will be the typo errors or the printing errors in the ballot papers. That is a serious, if you look at comments, every Kenyan, I don't think any Kenyan anyway is happy with that particular aspect. That one will be a serious talking point, because the question is, we've had 5 years to prepare. Election is a process. You just don't wake up and say we are voting today. And then lastly, on the political side, I think the turnout is a bit of a concern. Yeah. Unless Kenyans do their thing. We normally show up the last 2 hours, 3 hours. That is a hope. But as it stands, the turnout may not hit the turnout of 2017. Yeah. Hopefully with the 4 or 5 hours, because in the morning it was rainy, it was chilly, and the technical hitches, quite a number of Kenyans always prefer coming the last 3 hours. My problem would be the time involved. And the manner in which we've run this particular voting today tells you we must then be vigilant for result transmission. That will be the next fight, because if there's a spillover of time on voting, if a station started voting 3 hours late, then they'll vote all the way to 8 in the night. So no results will be being channeled from that station. Other stations would have started already relaying results. So the next story will be transmission. But first thing first, the turnout level is a serious concern, and I've seen across board. There are some places that would be understandable, because I saw the case of Garissa and Wajir, where they're talking about the drought situation. Automatically that has an impact on the voter turnout. But you can't explain for Mount Kenya why there isn't too much enthusiasm. Generally, Mount Kenya is always a voting machine in terms of they always show up. There's always a lot of excitement. For the first time, I've seen lines in Mount Kenya a bit average, and people look subdued, quiet. So hopefully, as I say, we always have peculiar habits as Kenyans. Hopefully people can turn up from 3 up to 5 or from 2, because as at now, I presume IEBC has been able to try to sort out wherever there are messes, wherever there was a replacement of a KIMS kit, then and lastly, it is incumbent upon the candidates also to go out and mobilize. If you had your voters who had shown up in the morning and there was a problem with the KIMS kit and whatever, and the same has been rectified, for example, manual register has been allowed, or a case of a replaced KIMS kit, then the proposal would be, it is only fair for the same candidates right from the MCA, and as well as agents up to the presidential level, to mobilize and get the voters out. It shows that this particular elections will be won based on the voter turnout. As it stands, I don't know. I've only seen very positive returns in Rift Valley. The queues and the turnout level in Rift Valley is significant. That is the only positive element I've seen. But the other places is still a concern.
Okay, so we have some live pictures from Matungu, where Professor George Wajakoya is now able to cast his vote. Of course, we were there a bit earlier on where he was airing his grievances. There were some issues with the KIMS kits, and he wasn't the only one who was inconvenienced. Several voters had to wait a couple of hours. Now, we do understand the IEBC officials said they would extend voting for that particular polling station, given some of the hitches there. But of course, this begs the question, and I'll direct this to you, Irungu, in terms of some of the contingencies that the IEBC said that it would have in place. For instance, having 6 KIMS kits backup for each ward. We didn't see that come into play, at least for Matungu and several other areas in the country. You know, what do you make of their response so far when it comes to some of those hitches?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing just to say, and I don't know if you've asked everybody to speak with their finger up in the air, but let me just start by doing that and just say that I was at my polling station by 4:45 this morning, and I voted at 6:15. And there was a lot of people who almost broke down the gates to Kilimani Primary School just because they wanted to vote before 6 a.m. So there has been, I think it's a very mixed picture. But I think the key thing really that we have to keep in mind, and that's why we need to be patient in some ways. And Joshua, I think, has laid out some of the big issues. But you're talking about 16,000 candidates. You're talking about 46,000 polling stations, 65.2 million ballot papers. The logistical exercise of running a national election like this, and we haven't even started talking about, I don't know if you've been talking about the diaspora and what the progress is with those 12 countries, which is also part of Kenya for today. But I think we have to insist that there are certain standards that the IEBC had committed themselves to maintaining over this period and really following what may be not happening. So I think that's the first thing. Obviously, some of it may be just logistical problems, right? But logistical problems can become election offenses. And I think this is what's most important. What we have been mostly looking at is at the level of, safeguarding Kenyans' right to vote, is making sure that, we're keeping an eye on the chaos. We're keeping an eye on the protests that are happening. So in places like Tudor Village or in Rongai and a few other places where you've actually seen voters become unruly and even stop voting for a while, these are matters of concern. I think Kibra and the 4 people that were arrested in terms of vote buying, these are major concerns because these are very clearly election offenses. And, all election offenses are essentially designed to suppress votes, to suppress voters. And that's why, I think all the agencies need to be following this very closely. One significant difference in this election is that you do have new institutions that are beginning to look at election offenses. And I think the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions has got a call center up and running, which is unprecedented. I don't think we've had a case where the ODPP is setting up a separate investigation, I guess a call-in center, so that he can actually receive information from the public and therefore instruct investigations where this is happening. Yeah. So I think for Kenyans, we have to be vigilant over this period. I don't think the optimism that was there that we would have results at the presidential level by what time was the promise?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. I would hope this is the case, but I would just urge Kenyans to be a bit more patient, but also vigilant.
All right. Stay with us, Irungu and Joshua, but let's cross over now to the IEBC at the Bomas of Kenya. And Ayub Abdikadir is standing by there. Let's see if we can get some answers. Ayub, do we have any explanations in terms of the delays that are going on and the contingency measures coming up? Ayub?
Thank you, Trevor, Vicky, and Swale from our communication center in Nairobi. And we are the Bomas of Kenya, the nerve center of the IEBC. With me in our field studio is Wanjiru Gikonyo, who is the national coordinator of the Institute of Social Accountability, who has been monitoring the poll process and also in their awareness campaigns as to better our democracy. Wanjiru, thank you for your time. Just quick fire questions here. And what are your observations so far as regards the poll process across the country?
Thanks, Ayub. Happy to be here.
Okay.
I voted early in the morning and also monitoring what's going on through the TV screens and also some of the groups that we are on. Okay. Polling is uneventful, as it should be. Really not much to report. I think some delays here and there in terms of the KIMS kit. This is a technology issue. I think it will be looked at thereafter. But we can say, despite the delays, because we know there was a delay in the IEBC getting its resources, getting the IEBC put together. You know, a lot of kind of doubts about whether they'd be ready on the day.
Okay.
If you look at the communication coming from the IEBC, the processes they put in place in terms of their coordination with the political parties, the guidelines in terms of the voting process, in terms of the transmission process, in terms of access by the agents versus access by the parties, you know, I think they're prepared, and so far we can say that it's going on well.
Okay.
We are seeing surprisingly low turnout in parts of the country, and you know, Central of course is the big battleground.
Okay.
So we wait to see what happens, because it's a game of numbers here. It's a game of numbers. It's the issue of verification and authenticity matters, and I think we've seen the IEBC be very careful, including the postponement of a couple of the election in a couple of stations, a couple of positions. And I'm sure that was done because if they get a foot wrong, annulment is right round the corner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what the Supreme Court pointed out in 2017, the significance of this being a process rather than an event. But when you mention the cases of Kakamega and Mombasa that the Commission mentioned in a statement yesterday, in terms of preparation, what's your observation from the Commission's perspective?
Well, one is the Commission has been in a difficult position because there have been numerous court cases around the eligibility of candidates. And you know, this happened until the last moment, and we could hear the IEBC chair telling us they need to print the ballots. And of course, this was delayed a little bit because of questions around the Chapter 6. Who should be on the ballot? And of course, the court cases eventually came out with a decision that meant some of the previously candidates who had been disallowed were allowed, some of those who had been allowed were so there was some confusion leading up, so that may have contributed to this. So maybe we give the Commission the benefit of the doubt.
Well, Wanjiru, let me just pause you because we need to cross over to the media center where the